Senior Ali Poggi will be among the last Elon students to take a class with her favorite professor, Lisa Peloquin.
I was just absolutely devastated. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Nobody's more deserving than she is.
It all surrounds the centuries-old tradition of tenure. 30 Minutes sits down with the administration that sets the bar.
Do you think the process works?
I think there needs to be a standard under which we get involved.
University officials like Janelyn Patterson work with town authorities to cut down on off-campus partying. She says she's protecting students, but we found emails that single out one group in particular.
When you looked at those situations, what you saw were coolers that had Greek letters all over them.
There's no healing from something like this.
Taken and used. 30 years later, she's ready to tell 30 Minutes about what happened when she was kidnapped and forced to have sex. It's more than prostitution. It's modern-day slavery.
You know, to be raped over and over and over and over and over again. It's just one of the, worst things that could ever happen to a person.
I'm Sam Baranowski.
I'm Nick Oxner.
I'm Drew Smith. Those stories on this edition of 30 Minutes. A 6-letter word seals the fate between a professor and the university: tenure. Simply put, tenure protects the faculty from termination without just cause. In the 19th century, professors worked at the pleasure of the Board of Trustees. If the board was unhappy, the professor was let go. Tenure changed that. Now professors who get tenure have an indefinite contract that gives them academic freedom in their teaching and research. Tenure isn't a given to all those brought in on the track, and professors denied it have to start over somewhere else. At Elon, several people were upset about the tenure decisions this year and voiced their concern to the president and the provost. We spoke to both sides to take a look at the process.
When I came to the university, one of the things I wanted to make a priority was the faculty.
Elon University President Leo Lambert believes in Elon's tenure system. Since starting in 1999, he raised the percentage of tenure and tenure-track professors to more than 80%. Tenure creates a permanent relationship between the faculty members and university, making it hard for them to lose their jobs.
So it's somewhat of a safeguard for both the faculty and the university.
And the students.
But only for those students who have a close relationship with tenured professors. Sociology student Ali Poggi lost that safeguard.
Dr. Peloquin called me right after she found out, and I was just like, you're joking, right? I said it in a more profane way.
Sociology professor Dr. Lisa Peloquin is Poggi's advisor and favorite professor. Elon denied her tenure this year.
I was just absolutely devastated. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Nobody's more deserving than she is.
Once denied tenure, a professor is allowed to teach at Elon for one more year before having to leave. Peloquin told us she was too upset about the decision to talk about it, but Poggi says Peloquin draws people to sociology and engages students in the classroom.
What makes Dr. Peloquin a great professor?
Oh my God, what doesn't? She's really, really invested in the lives of her students. She shows so obviously that she cares about their well-being, and she brings out their potential. I mean, she's really inspiring. She keeps things interesting in the classroom. I mean, she makes you want to learn more about the subject.
On Elon's website, under the headline Engaged Learning, is a picture of Dr. Peloquin traveling with students.
When did you kind of establish a special relationship with her?
And we hit it off right away, and the first time we actually met wasn't even in class. It was outside the sociology and anthropology house, and we just started chatting, and it was just kind of funny because we were like, oh yeah, you have a nose ring, I have a nose ring, we're serious about school.
How do you deal with it? How do you comfort a student that is really upset that their favorite professor is not going to be here?
It's frustrating because I think individuals believe the process was arbitrary or unfair.
Poggi was one of those students who contacted the president about the decision.
A system or an institution or whatever it is, a process, doesn't work if it's not rewarding the people who are best at what they're doing. So no, it doesn't work. It's immensely messed up.
You think it works?
I think it works.
University Provost Stephen House operates by the book.
I do not believe that mistakes are made because the handbook clearly describes what is expected.
He says the faculty are a part of the process that determines their fate. There's a faculty-elected committee which pores over tenure-track professors' portfolios.
The moment tenure-track professors begin here at Elon, they'll start putting together this. It's a portfolio, and it contains everything they've done. And the three major areas the tenure committee looks for are teaching, scholarship, and service.
They take it very, very seriously. And yeah, it's a challenge, and certainly some tough decisions have to be made. And I would imagine these faculties lose some sleep during this process.
The committee isn't alone in making the tenure decision. In addition to their vote, the professor's dean and university provost also have a say. The decision is then sent to the Board of Trustees for approval.
So do you think there should be changes made to the tenure process here?
It needs to be at least reevaluated. I mean, because there have been a lot of decisions recently that have made people unhappy.
Supporters of Dr. Peloquin created a Facebook group, calling on others to send emails to Elon administration, boycott the Ignite Giving campaign, and nominate Peloquin for Faculty of the Year. Students have been upset about previous tenure decisions, but this time, professors are also questioning the university's decision to deny Dr. Peloquin. 30 Minutes obtained this email from 5 tenured professors in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology to the faculty and staff listserv. It says, quote, "All of us supported her tenure application in the strongest possible terms." It goes on to say that, quote, "Elon has created a review process where those who do not know one another make judgments based on materials submitted in binders."
What do you think the effect is on the students that Dr. Peloquin's not going to be here anymore?
I mean, I feel so bad for the people who never get a chance to take a class with her, or have taken classes with her and wanted to continue working with her, and they won't be able to do that. I'm a senior, I'm graduating, so I'm lucky that I've had this time with her, but the future Elon, I guess, students will never know what they're missing, and that's really sad. I wish that she could inspire everybody the way that she's inspired me.
Do you think the process works?
I do. I don't necessarily think any promotion and tenure process on any campus is perfect, and I think we always have to be looking to adjust.
The university is currently doing just that. There's a committee in place to evaluate the process, set up before the most recent tenure decisions came out.
There would be some things that I would tweak, I would modify a little bit, and I've had the opportunity to meet with the committee that's looking at this and been able to express some ideas on what I think might be modified a little. And I think what's going to come out of this process will be a really affirmation of what we're doing here, but maybe with some components that might maybe modified a little bit.
How would you feel if this was you?
I mean, it would be absolutely devastating. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I don't know how she keeps teaching.
They share the same name, but like many siblings, don't always get along. Elon students may think the town of Elon is only the green grass and identical buildings they see around campus. But beyond the tall oak trees and brick archways lies an entire city government. The relationship between a university and the town in which it's located is often referred to as town gown. Tonight, we take a look at what the relationship is like between the university, town employees, and those who live in the town of Elon. The people we talked to for this story all said there were few wrinkles in the relationship between the town and the university, but we wanted to find out for ourselves, so we did. 30 Minutes requested thousands of emails between town and university officials under North Carolina public records law. We hope to get a behind-the-scenes look at the working relationship between the dozens of employees on both sides who interact every day. Turns out they were right. As we combed through the emails, we found cooperation on a number of topics. Cordial notes between President Lambert and the town manager, information sharing among police officers and judicial affairs administrators, and countless other instances where the parties seemed to get along well. As we kept reading, we found one relationship that seemed especially cooperative, one that, at times, has led to a few extra phone calls and some stern guidance for students.
My role with students is to help them understand policies, if they're going to be cited, to help them understand how they can take corrective action to avoid being cited.
Janelyn Patterson works at the university as the Assistant Vice President for Student Life. We found a number of conversations between Patterson and the town's planning director, Sean Tenser.
I try to use her as a voice for me to say, hey, look, there's a problem. take it one step further and go to Janet Lynn and say, look, I got some students here, what can we do?
As town planner, Tenser's job is to enforce town ordinances and check for appearance code violations. As assistant vice president, one of Patterson's responsibilities is to work as a liaison between town employees like Tenser and Elon students. A typical email between Tenser and Patterson looks like this one from November 30th, 2009. Whenever a weekend of partying results in yards full of trash or houses covered in tarps, Tenser turns to Patterson to help take care of the problem, asking her to step in on behalf of the university.
We do try to be proactive with those houses to say, look, this is far beyond the standard.
Tenser says Patterson's proactive efforts beat his other option.
As a town official, I can do civil penalties, but I choose not to do that. I generally try to work it out first.
So that's really a last resort for you.
It's a last resort for me, and it's a last resort. I don't like finding people. It's not fun.
But we found several emails from Patterson like this response to Tenser's message on November 30th, encouraging him to continue citing students. And this email from September 9th, 2009 shows Patterson answering a question from Tenser about the university stepping in to have students clean up their off-campus house. Patterson urges Tenser to issue a civil citation so the university can become involved in the matter, saying, "I can sure threaten it if they are issued a citation."
I just thought it was interesting reading you, go ahead and cite them, so that we can get involved, kind of a university employee encouraging the citation of students.
Well, I apologize if that's the perception, but it's more that I think there needs to be a standard under which we get involved. It's much more of in a way to say, if this has risen to the level that you need to take some action, then take some action, and then we'll work with you on that. But I'm very hesitant about always being in students' business off campus with regard to those kinds of things.
Patterson and Tenser ride together through the town about twice a year, looking at off-campus houses where students live. We sent a cameraman along with Tenser on a recent ride, sitting in the seat normally reserved for Patterson. A ride last spring prompted Patterson to email Director of Greek Life Shayna Plasters. She was worried about the negative perception Greek students living off campus were sending to community members.
You sent an email to Shayna Plasters and said that the perception from the town was that Greek students were the major problem.
Right.
Do you think that's the case?
No, not necessarily. Perceptually, I think it's the case because when you looked at those situations, what you saw were coolers that had Greek letters all over them in yards that clearly were violating ordinances. You saw posters in the yard, or they were on the doors, but were now in the yard. So the perception, because that's what's the most visible, is obviously that there's more, there are more violations by its students of Greek. But I don't necessarily think that's necessarily the reality, because there have been other times where we've tried to be proactive with students that are not.
That's not the first time Patterson has sent an email expressing concern about Greek students off campus. Patterson sent this email in February 2009 to then-Director of Greek Life, Jay Anhorn, expressing concern over a particular off-campus house where Greek students live, saying that the house is just gross. This time, Patterson focused on just one fraternity, Kappa Alpha Order, known as KA around campus. Richard Donegan is a member of KA. He says his fraternity has received more scrutiny than others.
I feel like, for whatever reason it may be, we've kind of always been in the spotlight as far as with the school trying to set an example of us, whether that be because we've gotten in trouble to a higher degree than other fraternities have in the past years, which is debatable.
When it comes to Greek students being the main source of off-campus parties, noise, and trash, Donegan disagrees.
You'd have to more so be looking for it to notice it. I don't think it bothers the townspeople at all if that's what she's concerned about.
Would you say do you pay more attention to the Greek folks just because they're out there more, maybe they're more apparent?
No, I don't pay, I just pay attention to the problem.
So you think that the town is more generous than the university?
they're more understanding that it's college. Whereas the university, on the other hand, will kind of take things to the next level. They won't even contact you necessarily directly and tell you exactly what's going on. But there could be people who are going to get in trouble and do dangerous things and drink too much. I mean, but that's going to happen anywhere. There's like no way you can control that, no matter what you do.
Daryl Gauthier is concerned about the cost of controlling parties that get out of hand. Gauthier lives in Elon and owns Provence Apartments and Avelian townhomes, popular off-campus housing options for students.
I'm going to go out on a limb and suspect that probably more than 40% or 50% of the telephone calls placed to 911 or placed to the police department are probably university related. Maybe drunken students, maybe noise. It could be a slew of things.
A 30 minutes analysis of police reports from the first 4 months of 2011 shows that just 28% of all calls involved an Elon student, and a little more than half of the incidents involving students also involved partying, drugs, or alcohol. Gauthier says the university is putting a burden on the town by creating a need for emergency services but not paying for them. The university does not pay property taxes because it is a nonprofit.
I don't believe 40 or 50% of the budget for the police department or the fire department is supported by the university.
Even though the university doesn't pay property taxes, it makes a contribution to the town's general fund each year. That contribution totals a little less than $19,000. The town manager says that figure hasn't changed in 25 years. It also has an agreement with the fire department, which is run independently of the town, that transfers $40,000 from the university to the department each year. No matter the cost, Patterson and Tenser say the town and university will continue working together to cut down on out-of-control parties. They say it protects students.
It truly is a liaison and a facilitator when there's a concern. Act as an advocate sometimes for students in situations where, especially with their landlord, about how we need to work, to help them kind of come to resolution with that so that there's not legal action.
Janelyn Patterson says that she's protecting students when she urges the town to issue a fine or to take extra action.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's the case?
I'd say no.
Sex trafficking is a low-risk, high-profit enterprise. Because it looks to the observer and often to law enforcement as prostitution, it is tolerated. The differences are the words force, fraud, and coercion, the key defining terms in our state and federal laws. An estimated 100,000 minors are victims of this underreported crime in the United States each year. Many of them come from troubled pasts, abuse, rape, and neglect. The FBI estimates 70% of all runaways are approached by a trafficker within 24 hours of leaving home. That's who Davina Schrantz was before she was taken, and where our story begins.
They take advantage of people who just are in a bad place and runaways, and they don't deserve that.
New Orleans was supposed to be a place of escape for Davina Schrantz, escape from an abusive group home.
They choose to believe that these people care about them because, you want to believe that it's easier to believe that than to come to the reality of what the situation is.
Instead, she says it led to her capture into sex slavery. Dee hitchhiked from Columbus to New Orleans with a group of runaways. She was the perfect target for her traffickers. Broken, alone, and desperate for a place to go.
Somebody said, oh, you shouldn't, talk to them, but I just didn't listen because they seemed like normal people. I thought they're harmless. They got me to drink and they had spiked my drink.
She says the couple then transported her from a bar in New Orleans to a trailer in Amite, Louisiana. They offered her clothes and perfume, jewelry, and shelter.
They started telling me stuff like, we're going to take care of you now, and you think they're doing this for you, so that at first, and you're not realizing that they're just setting you up for what they have planned for you.
Dee was now their property. She says they traveled again 130 miles south to the ports of Morgan City, this time to what she describes as a brothel. It was there she and a group of other girls were taken to the bar each night and forced to coax customers into a back room for sex. Her only compensation was staying alive.
You had no choice. You better do some performing or you're going to pay consequences.
That was 30 years ago. Today, it still feels real.
Rape the first time when I was 16, and just that was bad enough, but I always cry. I'm sorry, I can't. I never can go to that place and not remember, not think about the other girls, and to be raped over and over and over and over and over again. It's just one of the worst things that could ever happen to a person.
To us, this is abuse. To them, it's a business, one that brings in an estimated $40 billion each year. But it's also one of the most difficult crimes for the FBI to uncover, a task that Special Agent David Dawson takes on each day.
It's a crime that's hidden by the nature of the crime and by the nature of the victim. It's not something that's apparent on the surface. One of the biggest issues we face in human trafficking is our ability to find and locate the victims.
He says Dees is a textbook example of a victim's story. Disoriented, vulnerable, and too trusting of a friendly stranger.
They're moved around so frequently. In some cases we find victims, they don't know the city that they're in. All they have are the clothes on their back and the trafficker who's taking them city to city.
Are these traffickers someone I could just walk by on the street? Is it every John Doe that we see?
I'd like to tell you that every trafficker wore the dark eye patch on one eye and had the scar on their face on the other and was easily recognized as the evil one. But some you'll see in business suits, some you'll see working in crack houses on the street. There's no set demographic and there's no set stereotype for the trafficker.
I wonder how people didn't notice the brothel, the fence around it, and all those extra people. What do you think the community was doing that they couldn't react?
Even to this day, with it all being out, with movies being told about it and stuff, people are just blind to that. They just don't see.
Dee was determined to get out, but she was left alone to do it. Activist groups say the public has no idea how close these crimes are to home. North Carolina is 8th in the country for trafficking. The state's highway system is a crossroads. It's a central location on the East Coast and home to large minority populations, often targeted by traffickers.
This comes in Spanish and English right now.
We just thought that there were some very obvious things that people could report.
A group called Surreptimist, meaning Best for Women, is led by a doctor, a lawyer, and a psychologist, all working to increase awareness of human trafficking in central North Carolina. Patricia Witt is the brain behind the operation.
What I should say motivates me the most is that citizens can do something in their ordinary walk of life to improve the situation, and whatever we do is going to raise our standard of living.
Why North Carolina?
The focus in North Carolina is trying to get policies in place and legislation because we want to prosecute the criminals. But the other side of that is raising public awareness, and that's where we feel we can contribute the most.
Her group created these orange cards for first responders and community members. They list 11 signs to identify trafficking in local neighborhoods, such as unusual and irregular hours of entry and exit, number of residents exceeds occupancy standards, and living quarters with peculiar security, such as barbed wire and guarded compounds.
Just in your daily routines of going around, just observe.
It is estimated there are currently more than 12 million trafficking victims worldwide, including commercial sex and labor. Special Agent Dawson says it's impossible to know how many in the U.S. because it's underreported, well hidden, and difficult to prosecute.
When we talk about the profit, when we talk about the statistics, we're really talking about what we do know. But for all the victims that we've encountered and do know, there's many out there that we've never seen and haven't come in contact with yet.
What would you tell women my age who may run into the same sort of issue or be approached by a trafficker?
Don't talk to strange people. I mean, you're just ripe for the picking. They're looking.
The traffickers are willing to hang out at places that you might find the runaway. The train station, the bus station, the airport. They know where the runaways are and they're looking for them.
They can identify the potentials, the ones that are going to go along and the ones who aren't, within about 30 seconds, they say. They've honed this because it is a $32 billion business each year.
The motive of the trafficker is simple, it's profit. When you look at a drug trafficker, he has one product, the drug. Once he sells the drug is gone and he can make no more profit off that. When you look at the human trafficker, his product can be used again and again and again. It's a highly profitable business.
You're like a walking dollar sign to these people.
For 3 months, Dee was stuck. In what she describes as an act of desperation, she trusted one of her clients.
I had nothing to lose. I got up on the fence and he helped me over and into the pickup truck I went. And I said, maybe this was an angel who's driving a pickup truck. I would rather be dead than to be in that place being used by people like that.
Dee started a new life and a family in North Carolina. She kept her story quiet until 5 years ago when she started putting it on paper.
Opening old wounds isn't easy, but you wrote a book about all of this.
Yeah, when you start shining the light on darkness, it just can't stand it. And that's, what I like to do as an advocate is to come out and tell what's going on. It's empowering to say, I'm the victim. I'm the victim.
What about the other girls? What do they do if they don't have that strength like you did?
They live a very, very bad life. They live a very sad life.
That does it for this edition of 30 Minutes. Thanks for watching.